So in Texas, an anti-mask activist basically killed a decorated veteran who served 2 tours in Afghanistan. Let's talk about it in today's video. Hi, I'm Mike Greiner. I'm a lifelong Democratic activist who's concerned about the direction our country is taking. If you share my concerns, maybe you could like this video and subscribe to this channel, maybe even click that little bell that will notify you when I post something new. So this is a tragic story if ever there was one. Daniel Wilkinson was 46 years old, a veteran who had served 2 deployments in Afghanistan. He walked into the emergency room in his hometown near Houston, Texas. 24 hours later, he was dead. The cause of his illness was something entirely treatable, a gallstone, as it turns out. It just so happens that the hospital he was at didn't have the facilities to treat him. So what did the emergency room doctor do who was treating him? He called around to all the different hospitals in the area, in fact, hospitals all throughout the South and throughout Texas, asking if they had beds available to treat him. Well, as it turns out, all these hospitals were full. Why? Because they were taking care of COVID patients who were sick because they had not gotten the vaccine. Now, as we know, both Florida and Texas are dealing with particularly egregious outbreaks of the Delta variant of COVID. A large part of the reason for these outbreaks is the relatively low vaccination rate, especially in Texas and other southern states. This attitude has been encouraged by the governor. In Texas, it's Republican Greg Abbott, whose spokesperson has said, and I quote, "Governor Abbott has been clear that we must rely on personal responsibility, not government mandates." Now, I think it's easy for people to say, oh, getting a vaccine or not is my own personal choice. It doesn't affect anyone else. And it's hard to explain to people the fact that getting everyone vaccinated protects everyone. And if there are people who don't get vaccinated, then that puts the entire population at risk. But here we can point to a direct cause and effect situation. On the one hand, you've got Daniel Wilkinson, a veteran sick with something entirely unrelated to COVID who couldn't get treatment because of all the COVID patients occupying beds throughout the state. At the same time, you've got 30-year-old Caleb Wallace, a leader of the anti-mask movement in Central Texas, who became infected with the coronavirus and spent 3 weeks in an intensive care unit. He died after he first realized he was infected with the disease. He took a mix of vitamin C, zinc, aspirin, and ivermectin, which is a drug typically used to treat parasitic worms in both people and animals. Obviously, none of that helped. So this 30-year-old father of 3, whose wife is expecting another child, has now passed. And the loss was completely preventable. Now, you might say that just affected him, but it didn't, because of the fact that this was at the same time that Daniel Wilkinson was being denied a bed for his treatment. As a veteran, Daniel Wilkinson was somebody who put his country ahead of himself repeatedly. His mother described him as he loved his country. And as always, by the way, I'll post links to all the articles down below. But yet a bed in Texas that could have saved his life was taken up by Caleb Wallace, who founded the San Angelo Freedom Defenders, a group that hosted a rally to end what is called COVID-19 tyranny, according to him. His freedom rally was allegedly for people who are sick of the government being in control of our lives. But had the government been just a little bit more aggressive and at least encouraging people to get vaccinations and spreading correct information rather than the false information that Texas has been spreading, then situations like the one where Daniel Wilkinson was unable to get treatment would not be happening. As President Biden has pointed out, this is an outbreak, a pandemic among the unvaccinated. If you're vaccinated, yes, there are occasional outbreak cases, but they are few and far between, and they tend to be mild. The ICU beds that are occupied in Texas are filled almost entirely by people who refuse to get vaccinated, including Caleb Wallace. So next time somebody tells you that it's their personal choice as to whether they get vaccinated, it doesn't harm anyone else if they don't, point to the example of Daniel Wilkinson, who died of an entirely preventable disease only if he had been able to get into a hospital. His doctor pointed out that he's never lost a patient from this diagnosis, ever. He just needed access to the treatment. And thanks to Caleb Wallace and the other anti-mask, anti-vaccine organizers out there, that treatment was not available to him. Well, if you agree with me or disagree with me, I'd love to hear your comments down below. And if you could like this video and subscribe to this channel, that'd be a huge help. I'll see you in the next video. And in the meantime, let's hope for continued progress. Thank you.